The Muslim Brotherhood is an 84-year-old organization founded by Hassan al-Banna in Ismailia, and its long-time aim was to establish an Islamic state in Egypt. And now that it's elected Mohamed Morsi as president, it's much closer to that goal, or much closer to being able to achieve that goal than it's ever been.
Let's move on to the Muslim Brotherhood in Egypt. We predicted this would happen. There's virtual civil war now. The Muslim Brotherhood is sending gangs in, rape gangs apparently.
Third lesson, Morsi is not a compromiser.
This guy headed up the Muslim Brotherhood, a terrorist organization. He's trying to implement Sharia law.
The country has since been racked with unrest, with the opposition accusing the Islamist Muslim Brotherhood of monopolizing power and whittling away the rights of minorities and women.
He's got blood on his hands, Michelle. He's a murderer, he's a terrorist, he's a killer.
Mohamed Morsi has said publicly this Egypt can never be presided over by, forget a woman, but a non-Muslim. She could never. And he reaffirmed that to the New York Times in September 2012.
This guy was a former terrorist in the Muslim Brotherhood.
Oui, il y a un fascisme islamique qui monte un peu partout, et cet obscurantisme qui parfois porte le nom d'un certain nombre de frères musulmans ou d'un salafisme doit être évidemment condamné, puisque là on nie encore une fois cet état de droit, cette démocratie.
They have certainly carried out their promises, which many of my colleagues thought they wouldn't. And in fact, actually Tariq al-Bishri, that was the other point that he made in that article, which was that he's afraid that the Ikhwan have gone down the path of creating the state of the faqih instead of the state of the jurist, that is the constitutional equality.
Since September, radical Egyptian President Mohamed Morsi has been calling on the U.S. to free convicted mastermind of the 1993 World Trade Center bombing, Omar Abdel Rahman, also known as the Blind Sheikh.
Muslim countries today are still under the influence of secularists, are still under the influence of the old armies, the old police, the old judges. Okay, even for example, somebody could argue and say, oh, today Mohamed Morsi, an Islamist president, came inside Egypt. Yes, but who is judges? Is there a change in the military institution that's been there for the last 70, 80 years?
And in the mid-ranks, the bureaucratic structures are full of people from the old regime or people who are fearful of Islamists in power. So you're seeing this real clash within the ministries themselves. And I think people have to understand there's a bureaucratic structure that is corrupt and rotten to the core. So no matter who's coming to power, you're going to have a lot of difficulty delivering tangible economic results.
The Brotherhood's three enemies, as they see it within the government, are the judiciary, state media, interior ministry.
Brother Mohamed Morsi, since he was elected, they've been throwing obstacle after obstacle in his way.
The vast majority of Egyptians want Islamic law, want Islamic rule, but there's a significant minority that doesn't, and they're not going quietly into the night.
Look what happened in Egypt. A lot of people, they say, no, we don't want to change even minute change in the constitution. We don't want it to change to an Islamic fundamentalist country. What happened to the blood of the brothers who died asking for Islam?
احذروا أيها المصريون إن وجدتم حمساويا مؤيدا للإخوان في أي محافظة مصرية فدماؤه حلال لأنه اعتدى على حرمة بلادنا.
And these fascist secularists in the Arab world are fighting
we were there with all kind of Egyptians, not only from the Muslim Brotherhood.
Nous avons un pays modéré mais pas laïque et il ne deviendra jamais laïque, corrompu ou injuste.
We say to the world that Islam is coming. We support everything that is no God but God and Muhammad is his prophet. We support President Morsi. We support the Freedom and Justice Party and we support whoever raises the flag of Islam.
بس أنا قلت له كل اللي نفسكم فيه. قلت له أنا أريد رئيس سلفي. كتاب والسنة فهم سلف الأمة. قال وإحنا دعوتنا سلفية. قال كده. قلت له أنا أريد رئيس لا يخاف من أمريكا. قال لي أنا ما بخافش. عايزين نفسكم في التاني.
النساء العرايا السافرات اللي رايحين عشان يغتصبوا يقول لك خط احمر ويتاجروا ويقولوا نمشي يا مرسي ونمشي الاخوان. طبعا وعلى فكره 19 صليبيات والعشر روتري واليونز وارامل ما لهمش حد يعني يلم بهم او يخافوا منه او يختشوا.
والله يا اخي يعني انا اثق في حكمه وذكاء وقدرات الرئيس مرسي وفقه الله. مصر اليوم هي تقود العالم الاسلامي والعربي خاصه.
4 قوى كبرى. أرى من يتولى رئاسة الدولة. هل تجدون فيكم من هو أكفأ من جماعة الإخوان المسلمين؟ لكن من يتولى أمور الدين في مصر؟ السلفية. يبقى عندنا الجيش والشرطة. ترون من الأولى بالشرطة؟ إذن هي أولى بها الجماعة الإسلامية، ويبقى الجيش لجماعة الجهاد.
You see, there's this essential division within the Brotherhood between people who are known as Do'a Wala Kuda, which means preachers, not judges. They want the Brotherhood to be more of a social preaching organization, and Kutubists, who want the Brotherhood to be a vanguard for a political program, as Steve mentioned. The Kutubists have really taken over the Brotherhood's leadership since about 2009 in particular, but they emerged especially around 2005 or so. And Morsi was the chief Kutubist. It was his job to weed out people like Abdul Muhammad al-Futu, like Muhammad Habib, who, for example, disagreed with the Brotherhood's 2007 party platform, which Morsi is credited with having drafted, saying that women can't run for president. It's very important to focus in on a certain aspect of this. For him, the Constitution is not only a mechanism to implement the Sharia, but notice he sees it as a mechanism for freedom. I think it's important to emphasize that the Brotherhood's view of freedom is not our view of freedom. For us, freedom has as a part of it the freedom to do whatever you want religiously. For the Brotherhood, freedom is the freedom to have an Islamic state. And in fact, an environment in which there is not an Islamic state hinges and is against their freedom. They view any kind of non-Islamic system as an imposition. So what he's saying is that we have to be free by having an Islamic constitution. But from the optics in Cairo, what Morsi's supporters will point out is that, first of all, Morsi has entirely outsourced his Israeli-Palestinian policy to his intelligence. He has not met with Israelis. Not only that, he organized a ceasefire that left Hamas stronger. He let Khalid Meshal declare victory from downtown Cairo.
Watch this.
التي ما جاء بها الأعداء الصهاينة والأمريكان إلا لتكون على عكس وضد إرادة الشعب الفلسطيني وضد مصالح الفلسطينيين.
Well, I'm sure that Benjamin Netanyahu's jaw has dropped to the floor so many times that it's black and blue there. And it's not just Israel that should be worried.
I think that peace treaty with Israel will be broken. It's not a matter of if, but when, in my view, George. I believe Egypt is heading for some very, very dark days.
Nobody should think that his election won't cause major challenges for U.S. policy in Egypt. He is a deeply hostile person towards U.S. interests, and his 9/11 revisionism is only one example of that.
Egyptian President Mohamed Morsi under fire for hateful comments he made more than 2 years ago against Zionists and the Israeli government. In a 2010 interview that resurfaced on YouTube, Morsi, then a senior leader of the Muslim Brotherhood, calls Zionists warmongers, descendants of apes and pigs, and calls on Muslim countries to break off ties with Israel.
These people who want nothing but our blood, they want the blood of Muslims and Arabs on this land. Therefore, we must resist them with all avenues of resistance. We must besiege the Zionists wherever they are.
Washington was quick to blast Morsi's comments. On a visit to Cairo, Senator McCain and 6 fellow U.S. lawmakers told Morsi how they felt in person.
In our meeting with President Morsi, we voiced our strong disapproval of statements he made a few years ago that have recently surfaced.
President Morsi hasn't backed down from the statements. Despite U.S. condemnation and no apparent regret from President Morsi, it doesn't look like Washington is viewing his comments as a game-changing crisis.
واحنا هنعتبر مساعدة جزية، مش هنعتبرها مساعدات وما إلى ذلك. بس احنا بنفرض عليها كده.
ده تصريح ثوري ده.
والله ويدفعوا تعويضات عن تخريبهم للوطن وتخريبهم للأمة الإسلامية وهم وغيرهم من الغرب.
And it's just another example of giving money without getting anything in return. And in approaching this Muslim Brotherhood government, our policy should be that they have to give to get.
For instance, President Morsi and his Muslim Brotherhood allies have ended direct relations with Israel, often blame Israel for incidents in the critical Sinai Peninsula, and have even called for the destruction of Israel. But now Egypt is desperate for economic help from the U.S. and international groups.
They're asking for major economic aid. They're asking for support at the IMF. That should come at a price, especially because of the outlook of this Muslim Brotherhood government.
U.S. aid won't ensure the Muslim Brotherhood changes its ways, but the question is, if it doesn't, should the U.S. be sending money to bail out the Egyptian economy?
So I would press the administration to think twice that because Morsi is playing it calm now on foreign policy, he will always play it calm because it simply neglects who he is. It neglects how fervently he and the Brotherhood push for things when they want it. The Brotherhood is going to have to work so hard to just consolidate its power that it's not going to be able to move on very quickly, I think, to its next step of the global Islamic State that's still very much a feature in its rhetoric. And I was asking Saad al-Husseini, the governor of Kafr Sheikh, about this goal of a global Islamic State. He said, listen, it's going to take 10 years to get Egypt right domestically. I mean, we're just not going to be there. It's going to take Morsi 10 years, and by the end of 10 years, Morsi won't be president because there are term limits. Like, we're really focused domestically.
The Murshid said, first the Murshid is the guy who said,
the supreme guide of the Brotherhood.
Yeah, the supreme guide said clearly, openly, our aim is to do finally the dream of the Islamic Khilafah. Okay, so maybe they want to turn Israel also into part of the Islamic Khilafah using Hamas or whatsoever, you know. So if you guys want to trust them, you know, but they'll give you all the nice words right now because they're not fully in power. Once they're in power, we're all in deep trouble.